Okay, so here's a demonstration of how to create a sound font for use with Soundbeam 6. So we're going to create a sound font which will be a series of samples assigned to different MIDI notes. And then we will save that, send it to Soundbeam 6, and then assign those notes to different positions in a beam or as a sequence in a switch. So we're using something like Audacity. If you haven't already got your audio files that you want to use, you could use Audacity to record your samples. So here is me recording test. Okay, so what I could do is I could copy that and export that. So if I say export the selection to wherever I like, and I could call that test. It already exists. Yes, I'll replace that. So this is me just demonstrating this feature. So what I've got now is I've got Soundfont create. So here is a little folder with different WAV files. Mary had a little lamb, and then there's the recording I just made of test. I'm just going to delete that test. So that was just showing you how to record and export a WAV in Audacity briefly. So I have a folder there called with my samples in it. I've used Audacity. This voice sound font, that's where I'm going to put my sound font in a minute when it's done, hopefully. So I'm using the software called Polyphone. And I shall say file, I shall say new, the name of the new sound font which I'm going to create. I'm going to name everything Lamb here. Lamb voice, I'm going to call this. Okay. Now then the samples, I'm going to need to bring in the samples, and so they are here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all these samples into this little window here and drop it on where it says samples. So at that point I can close this off. I'm finished with that. So our samples are now into this Soundfont builder. If I press and hold shift, no, hold on, before I do that I need to create an instrument. So if I click here, this instrument I'm going to call Lamb Inst. Okay. Now into this Lamb Inst I want to put all these samples. This is going to be a musical instrument made up of these various samples. So what I need to do is I'm pressing and holding shift and clicking the first and the last. That selects them all, and then if I just click and drag them into there, you see how that's highlighting. They've gone in now to this Lamb Inst. So if I click on that, up comes this window here, and this is where we have our different samples, and at present they're represented across all the keys. So each of these notes is playing all of these samples. So what I'm going to do is assign each of these to one specific note. So Mary, I'm going to put on note. If you just look here for a moment, when I hover over this note here, it's telling me that's key 60, and I want to put it there. So Mary, I'm going to put 60 in there. So left and right, this is stereo Mary, and then on the root key, so it's only going to play the actual sample, the sample at its actual recorded pitch. So Mary, then we want had, I shall give that a 61. 60, 61, 61, 61, and then I shall give that a 62, 62, 62, 62, and then little I shall give us 63, 63, 63, 63, and then 64, 64, 64, and 64. Now, so when I look at this the next time, it'll rejig them into the right order. So there we go. So I'll just, by clicking there and clicking back on that, it's positioned them in their sort of allocated positions across the keyboard. So there's now nothing on this part of the keyboard.
Mary had a little lamb.
And there we hear our notes as assigned. So we're getting there. So what we need to do now is to create a preset. So on this icon, if I click on that, and I'm going to call that lamb preset is what I shall call it. I'm going to say OK. So now we've got this lamb preset created, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag the lamb instrument into the lamb preset. So this is like a little tree of evolution. The preset might be considered the trunk. The instrument, because you can have multiple instruments within a preset, the instrument goes inside the preset and the samples go inside the instrument. That's the sort of the hierarchy if you think of this as a tree. So that should be us done. So what I'm going to do now is say File, and I'm going to export the sound font, and I'm going to put that into this folder here, the voice sound font. There we go, and it's called, and this is a lamb preset, into the voice sound font folder, which is on my desktop. So I'm going to say export, and that, do I want to save? No, I don't want to save that. So my voice sound font is here, and there's my lamb voice. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is get it into Soundbeam, into my Soundbeam 6. So if I open up my Chrome browser, and whether it's connected via Ethernet with a cable or via Wi-Fi with a Wi-Fi dongle, you'll need to get the IP address. So your machine will need to be on. Actually, my machine's not on here, so I'm just going to boot up my machine. I should just close this a second, just while my Soundbeam boots up. So if you don't know the IP address of your machine, you can find that by pressing the, I'm just waiting for my machine to boot up. So the tile screen appears, and if I press New and then press the cogwheel and then press Administration, I see there that the network address is 192.168.0.32. So if I open up my Chrome browser here and tap in 192.168.0.32, then importantly we put in colon 3000, and then we hit return, and this is where we can download the sound sets or the scales or the samples from the machine, or we can put anything we like into the machine here. So we drop files here, so we can put film, samples, or in this case Soundfont. So our voice sound font here, this is our lamb voice, so I'm going to pull that into there, and that tick shows me that it's gone in. So I'm now going to close that and turn my attention to the Soundbeam 6 in front of me. So I'm just going to swap the camera over and pick this up from there. So just to show you the network address would be where that would be found. If we go to New and press this cogwheel here and go to Administration, there's the network address there. So that's where I was finding the 192.168.0.32. Okay, if you just go back here and press the cogwheel, this time pressing the Edit Instrument Sound list, this is the list of all the sound fonts that are in here. and there are various wonderful banks of sound fonts, and ultimately that's where the sound fonts that come with the machine are located, and you can manage them here somewhat. But here, if we want a new preset, what we'll do is press this font preset button, and I'm looking for lamb. So there's my lamb voice. I don't know if you can see that, perhaps not, but that says lamb voice there. There's no making this a bit less blurry, I don't think. So if I press the lamb voice, and then here it says lamb preset, and so if I select that, I've now got 3 more things to do before it's done. I can give it a sort of friendly name that's going to appear in my list of available instruments and sound fonts, and then I've got to put it into a group. So I could put it in perhaps a human or user, and then I've got to give it a little icon like the rest of them all have icons here. So the name I'm going to give it, I'm going to call it Lamb of Mary, and I might even put a 5 there because I know that there's 5 words in there in essence. Okay, so I'll say okay to that. The grouping, I'm going to put it, well, I could make up a group, or I could access the list of already defined groups, and so we could put it in any of these, but I'm going to put it in user. I'm going to say okay to that, and then it's asking me for a tile, so I need to give it an icon, and I can give it any of these icons if I want, but I think I'll give it that little sample icon. This usually represents the different samples that are in there. This is a piece of audio, which this kind of is, so I'm going to call it, I'm going to give it that. So having done that, it quickly disappears, and that's because it's done and it's ready for you to repeat this operation if you want to. So let's go looking for it. So if we come out of there, and this is a new sound set, at present on beam 1 I have the sound of a piano and 7 notes. So what I'm going to do is, there's a few things I need to do to configure this for our notes to be heard here. If I press that button there, the first thing I might do is put the scale. I'm going to choose the chromatic scale. The pitch, I think I'm going to have to shift that up. .36. So that's 3 octaves from the bottom note to get to the middle C. So that's the scale. The scale options. The scale start note should be at 1. The divisions will have, I think we're going to have 5 divisions in that beam. The trigger multi, that's fine. And then the sound, well, we want, if I press Lamb of Mary 5, so that's our sound font allocated. So you can either double tap that or tap away. So Mary had a little lamb. And there we go. If we wanted to assign that to a switch, the same thing. We have to do all the same things. So we're going to sound, we're going to L, we're going to the trigger, we could put cyclic, and if we put cyclic clipped and increase that, we can just dab the switch each time and it will play its full length. I know that these are only a short amount, a second tops, but anyway, there we go. That might make sense in a minute. Divisions of 5. The pitch, again, we're going to have to put up to 36 to shift it up the 3 octaves to get to middle. See the scale, chromatic, and then perhaps that's us. Mary had a little lamb. Mary had a little lamb. So what's happening now is each time I press it and release it, just continues to play whatever audio is there. Lamb. I hope that's useful, and send an email to adrian@soundbeam.co.uk if you are exploring this sort of thing, getting a bit stuck. Whether he can help you is another matter, but he'd like to try.